Okay, here's two more that we need to try. This first one looks a lot more complex, but it's really not so bad. I've got D on two different sides here, but I have a little bit of a problem. I can't move them because they are kind of stuck inside these parentheses. If you think of the parentheses as a building, they're stuck inside that building and you can't just take them out until you can get rid of the parentheses. Well, in order to get rid of the parentheses, I need to distribute both of these out. So when I distribute this 7 out, I take 7 times 3D, which would be 21D. I keep my minus sign, and then 7 times 2 is 14. On the right side, I distribute the 4, and I would have 4D, and then keep my plus sign, and then 4 times 4 is 16. Now I've gotten rid of those parentheses because I've distributed that out. Now I can go ahead and move my variable. I am going to move the 4D by subtraction. And on the left side, when I do that subtraction, I'm left with 17D minus 14 equals, well, 4D minus 4D is 0. And I'm just left with a 16 there. Now I have to get rid of this minus 14 because I have to undo the addition subtraction first. So I'm going to add 14 to both sides. And I have 17D. The minus 14 plus 14 is 0. And that is going to be equal to 30. Now to undo this timesing by 17, I can divide by 17. Or if you want to think of it as multiplying by 1 over 17, that would be the same thing. And I need to do that to both sides. So I am left with D is equal to, again, if you type this into your calculator, you're going to get kind of an ugly decimal. So I'm just going to leave it as the fraction 30 over 17. It doesn't reduce, so I'm going to just leave it written like that. Okay, this last one here. We've got some fractions going on, but you still follow the exact same process. I have all my x's on one side, so I don't have to worry about moving them. So now I just need to undo my order of operations. First thing I need to get rid of is plus this 5 halves. I'm going to do that by the inverse, and I'm going to do it by minusing 5 halves. So on the left side, I'm left with 2/3 x. The plus 5 halves minus 5 halves is 0, is equal to. Now remember, when you subtract fractions, you have to have a common denominator. So I need to take my 8 over 1, and I need to make it have a denominator of 2. Well, in order to do that, I multiply the top and the bottom by 2. So I really have 16 over 2 minus 5 over 2. Now that I have a common denominator, I just subtract the tops. So 16 minus 5 gives me 11, and I would have 11 over 2. So over here on the left side, I am left with that 11 over 2. Now we've got to get rid of multiplying by 2/3. Well, in order to do that, we can divide by 2/3, but if you think about what dividing by 2/3 means, let's say we had some number here and we divided it by 2/3. If you were doing this by hand, you would keep that front number and then you would multiply by the reciprocal. So you would multiply by 3 over 2. Well, that's what we're going to do down here. Instead of dividing by 2/3, we're just going to rewrite it and say we're going to multiply by 3 halves. And we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to multiply by 3 halves. What happens on this side is everything cancels out to be 1s, so I'm left with x equals. And now remember, when I multiply fractions, it's a different process than what we just did with subtraction. I just multiply straight across. So I would have 33 over 2 times 2 is 4. And I'm going to leave that one as a fraction because it doesn't divide out very nicely either. Okay, here's 3 practice problems I want you to try. So pause the video, give all 3 of them a shot, and then see what you come up with. I'm going to give you a hint on this first one. These W's right here are not on opposite sides, so you just need to combine them first. So go ahead and pause the video and see what you come up with. Alright, on the first one here, I started it with blue. Now, that hint I gave you, this 5w and this minus 4w, they are on the same side of the equation, so they just needed to be combined. And 5w minus 4w is just a w. Then I still have that plus 8 right here. And then I still have it equal to 7w minus 3. So the first thing I had to do was combine those two. And since they're on the same side of the equal sign, I do not do inverses to combine them. I just combine them however it says. Then, when I come up here to the top, I had w plus 8 equals 7w minus 3. I moved my w's to get my variable on the same side, and I did that by using the inverse of w. Now this time, the reason I use the inverse is because I'm moving it from the left side of the equal sign, and I am moving it over here to the right side of the equal sign. So that's when I have to do the opposite. If they are on the same side of the equal sign, like it was down here, you just do whatever it tells you to. So it was 5w minus 4w. Very, very big difference there. When I did this move, I ended up with 8 equals 6w minus 3. Then I got rid of this minus 3 by adding 3 to both sides. So I had 11 equals 6w. Divide both sides by 6, and I got w is equal to 11 over 6. The second one here I did in red. Now this one, you had to follow your order of operations first to get rid of those parentheses. So I did my 3 plus 2 and got 5 on the inside. And then when I did the exponents here, 5 squared, that gave me 25. And now I essentially have my parentheses gone because this is just 7 times t times 25. So my parentheses were gone. Now I can start undoing my operations. I divided by 7 first. You could have divided by 25 first. That doesn't matter. And ended up with t times 25 equals 50. Divide both sides by 25 and you get t equals 2. And this last one, I didn't have to move any variables because there was only in one spot. Added 4 to both sides. So I was left with, right here in this light blue, 2/5 k is equal to 15. Now, this was one of those fraction ones. I had 2/5 times k, so I really needed to divide by 2/5. But remember, dividing by fractions is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So I multiplied both sides by the reciprocal, which is 5 over 2. When I did that, my 5's canceled out, my 2's canceled out, so I'm left with k equals, and over here it was really 15 over 1. Multiply my tops, and I get 75. Multiply the bottoms, and I get 2.